Thank you. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you to the last of this semester's readings, sponsored by the Department of English, the Georgia Poetry Circuit, and the Georgia Council for the Arts. And many thanks to all of you who've been supportive of these many readings throughout the semester, and looking forward to your continuing support next semester. This evening, I'm especially pleased to introduce Kim Addonizio, a poet whose work I admire for an intimacy and a directness familiar to my own aspirations as a writer of prose. In Addonizio's poems, says Gerald Stern, there is an unabashed willingness to let memory enter and take over. They are purgatorial and elegiac and unashamed. They insist on touching borders, and they flirt with self-love and spidery self-contemplation the way a reckless person flirts with deep water. But they save themselves from falling and drowning through their accuracy, their precision, and their desperate search for understanding. I first met Kim Addonizio vicariously when a friend who knew I had a tattoo sent me a postcard celebrating Addonizio's 1997 poetry collection, Jimmy and Rita. The postcard traveled with me from Virginia to Georgia last year, and in the spring of that year I met Kim for real. She spoke first on a panel called Women Writing Sex at the annual Associated Writing Programs Conference in New Orleans. Of the four speakers, Kim reminded me most vividly that as women and as writers, it is the body we need the most. Its demanding, pleasurable, and ephemeral map of experience that lets us access in concrete detail the otherness that is art. Best of all, this last week I have met Kim Addonizio again as I read and reread her collection called Tell Me. Poems, says Addonizio, must wake us up to our own lives. And this is exactly what happened as I read Tell Me. In a piece called Collapsing Poem, Addonizio describes a woman standing on some front porch steps and begging to be let back into a house and back into a love of a man she has lost. Addonizio is the woman, and I am the woman, and you are the woman, and all we can do is write ourselves, read ourselves, recognize ourselves, find comfort in the commonality of failures with those you meant to love most. There is devastating comfort in these poems and their images, as ordinary as gin in a frosted glass and as transitory as the blessing of rain. Previously a waitress, a tennis instructor, a Kelly girl, an attendant for the disabled, an auto parts store bookkeeper, Kim Addonizio is also the author of 3 books of poetry available for purchase and signing after the reading, I must say. These collections from Boa Editions are The Philosopher's Club, Jimmy and Rita, and Tell Me, the latter of which was a finalist for the 2000 National Book Award. She's also the author of a book of stories called In the Box Called Pleasure, and co-author of The Poet's Companion, a guide to the pleasures of writing poetry, and is most recently co-editor of an anthology called Dorothy Parker's Elbow, Tattoos on Writers and Writers on Tattoos. As well as being a National Book Award finalist, Addonizio has received 2 fellowships from the NEA, a Pushcart Prize, and a Commonwealth Club Poetry Medal. She lives, writes, and teaches in Oakland, California. And please join me in welcoming Kim Addonizio.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I'm going to do a few different things tonight, and I'm going to start with some poems from my last book. This is called The Numbers. This is for the insomniacs among us. How many nights have I lain here like this, feverish with plans, with fears, with the last sentence someone spoke, still trying to finish a conversation already over. How many nights were wasted in not sleeping? How many in sleep? I don't know how many hungers there are, how much radiance or salt, how many times the world breaks apart, disintegrates to nothing, and starts up again in the course of an ordinary hour. I don't know how God can bear seeing everything at once, the falling bodies, the monuments and burnings, the lovers pacing the floors of how many locked hearts. I want to close my eyes and find a quiet field in fog, a few sheep moving toward a fence. I want to count them. I want them to end. I don't want to wonder how many people are sitting in restaurants about to close down. Which of them will wander the sidewalks all night while the pies revolve in the refrigerated dark? How many days are left of my life? How much does it matter if I manage to say one true thing about it? How often have I tried? How often failed and fallen into depression? The field is wet, each grass blade gleaming with its own particularity, even here, so that I can't help asking again, the white sky filling with footprints, bricks, with mutterings over rosaries, with hands that pass over flames before covering the eyes. I'm tired. I want to rest now. I want to kiss the body of my lover, the one mouth, the simple name, without a shadow. Let me go. How many prayers are there tonight? How many of us must stay awake and listen? And this one is called Theodicy. I was raised Catholic, so it's kind of given me something to react against. And but one thing that I've always been preoccupied with is the age-old question of why is there evil in the world? And so theodicy means God's justice, as some of you probably know. And basically the dilemma is that if you posit the idea that God is all-powerful, God is good, and evil exists, you see a little problem with reconciling those three things. And so better minds than mine have tackled this subject, but this is my version of trying to understand that question. Theodicy. Suppose we could see evil with such clarity we wouldn't hesitate to stamp it out like stray sparks from a fire. Look at those boys shooting baskets in the park, jostling each other to hook the ball through the iron circle at the end of the asphalt. What if you knew a secret about one of them? Shirtless, he stands vibrating at the edge of an imaginary line, the orange globe trembling at the tips of his fingers, sweat drawing the light into his skin. What if he'd done something unspeakable, something I can't talk about but know you can imagine, to the one you love most in this world? Your child, maybe, or the person whose body you know so well you can see it simply by closing your eyes. What if he'd broken that body? Do you think if I handed you a gun, you would walk up to that shining boy and use it? You might think first that maybe he couldn't help himself. Maybe he was trying as he stood there concentrating on his shot to stop the noise of some relentless machine grinding away in his brain. The same one you hear in yours sometimes, bearing down until you can't tell what's true anymore or good. Suppose God began to have that trouble. Suppose the first man turned out cruel and stupid, a cartoon creature that farted and giggled continuously. Suppose the woman ripped saplings from the earth all day and refused to speak or be grateful for anything. What if they decided to torment the smaller, weaker beasts, and just as God was about to strike them dead and start over, they turned toward each other and discovered fucking. And the serpent whispered, "Look at them," and God's head filled with music, while the wild sparks leaped from their bodies, bright as the new stars in the heavens. So that's my version. What do you think? It's as plausible, I think, as the next person's. This is a poem that's written in a form, it's a non-Western form called a pantoum. And the thing about a pantoum is that you'll hear a lot of repetitions. It's kind of a complicated kind of repetition, so I won't go into it. But it's an old form. It's Malayan, and it has roots in ancient Persian poetry and Chinese, and it's great for obsessive subjects because you'll just hear that lines repeat, not always exactly, but they do repeat. This is called A Childhood. Our drinks came with paper umbrellas. My mother put on tennis whites. My father went to the bar the way he always did. My mother put on tennis whites. My brother threw me against a wall the way he always did. I believed in my guardian angel. My brother threw my mother against a wall. I walked in my sleep. I believed in my guardian angel. I woke up far from the house. I walked in my sleep. My mother read fairy tales and sang to me. I woke up far from the house. My mother was old, my father dead. My mother read fairy tales and sang to me. My father and brother crashed through the door. My mother was old, my father dead, along with my guardian angel. My father and brother crashed through the door. I went to the bar, along with my guardian angel, and our drinks came with paper umbrellas. And this is another family poem. This one's about my daughter, who's around the age of many of you, and who I miss enormously. She just called me today from England. This is called A Promise. When my daughter confessed she'd wanted to end her life at 10, stepped out on the window ledge and stood there at the edge of a decision, we promised never to kill ourselves, never to abandon each other. And I've never told her about the night 2 years later when I came to a place in myself where it seemed, for the first time, possible. The way a door appears suddenly in a fairy tale where the wall was solid. I knew I could do it. I was drinking and heartsick. I had enough pills. I sat on my bed, arms around my knees, and rocked the way I used to as a child. Then I believed in God. I would talk to him half the night sometimes, knowing he was there, in heaven, just above the ceiling of my parents' room. But now there was no one, only a couple of cats locked together in some yard or alley, yowling until someone raised a window, yelled, and slammed it shut. What a mess I was. How fiercely I loved her. My daughter called me once when I was away writing, and she said, "Mom, have you written a happy poem yet?" I said, "Oh, I am working on it." But that also reminds me of this Dorothy Parker poem about suicide called Resume, which goes, razors pain you, rivers are damp, acids stain you, drugs cause cramp, guns aren't lawful, nooses give, gas smells awful, you might as well live. That was as good an argument as any for not offing yourself. Actually, speaking of Dorothy Parker, I brought this book up here to read to you from. This is this book I just edited of writers on tattoos. And another woman and I started it sort of thinking it would just be this fun project and we'd do a thing on tattooed writers. And then we kind of opened it up to all kinds of writing on tattoos. And the more we found material, the more interesting it got, because it turned out to be not only about tattoos, but about all kinds of things, which just really about the range of life experience, which I guess is not that surprising considering that, tattoos are visual symbols, and literature also traffics in symbols. And, so really getting a tattoo is sort of about where your imagination meets your skin. But this piece, I'm going to read you a short excerpt, a prose piece from The Tattoo Hunter. And this piece sort of pointed out that, well, whether or not you have a tattoo, everyone is tattooed in some way, in the sense that everybody is marked by their experience. So this is Juvenal Acosta is the name of this writer from The Tattoo Hunter. My conscience is tattooed. My tattoos are not on my skin. Not true. I have kisses and scratches tattooed on my back. I have tangos tattooed upon the nostalgia of a mouth, poems tattooed on my apocalyptic anxiety. My chest was tattooed forever by a woman of water who has inscribed upon it her name with menstrual blood and said to me, "You are mine, motherfucker, only mine." Anyone will do. Each tattoo tells a story. Could be you. Sometimes the story is not of a tattoo, but of a scar, lightening upon the skin. Let me be yours. The tattoo is a freely chosen scar. Our love stories leave scars upon the skin of the kiss, upon the alcohol that we drink, upon the uncertainty of the days that go by. Each morning our nakedness shows us those scars, but the tattoo is a marking of sovereignty upon the skin, an exclusive territory of shadows, a shadow of light, a bullfighting ring of epidermic calligraphy and melancholy. Calligraphy of sadness, of rituals fulfilled in the name of that modern pain produced by the anxiety for freedom. I have tattooed on my retina a painting by Magritte, a regret on my esophagus, a tongue on my crotch, a silence on the decade of the 70s. I have tattooed on my throat the words I did not say, the ones I spit, the ones that live in the uncertain future of my unborn children. Tattoos of semen on the backs of lovers, of pointless one-night stands, of lubricants in the vagina of an eternally sad woman, of red wine dripping down the breasts of a woman in a hotel close to the Paseo de la Reforma. Tattoo or scar of a woman I met in a bar, of 10 women I met in 10 bars who loved me in the motels of drunkenness. Tattoo or scar of faked orgasms, of condoms strewn on the floor, of beer, of exchanged telephone numbers on fleeting napkins. Anyone will do. Could be you. Sexual scar, scar of the solitude of the end of the century. Let me be your love, let me be your tattoo. So that's by Juvenal Acosta, and I'm going to read you the poem of mine that's in here. This is called First Poem for You. And also, speaking of form, this is a sonnet. I like to read this to people too, to show them that sonnets don't have to sound like Shakespeare. First poem for you. I love to touch your tattoos in complete darkness when I can't see them. I'm sure of where they are, know by heart the neat lines of lightning pulsing just above your nipple, confined as if by instinct, the blue swirls of water on your shoulder where a serpent twists, facing a dragon. When I pull you to me, taking you until we're spent and quiet on the sheets, I love to kiss the pictures in your skin. They'll last until you're seared to ashes. Whatever persists or turns to pain between us, they will still be there. Such permanence is terrifying, so I touch them in the dark, but touch them trying. And this is another one. This is another short prose piece by a writer named Jennifer Armstrong. This is called Snakes. I'm trying to choose between boysenberry yogurt and raspberry, wondering which would leave fewer seeds stuck in my teeth, when the stained t-shirt, jean-sagging male specimen beside me at the dairy case says, "Hey, you've got a lizard crawling up your arm." I actually look at my arm, and of course I see the tail of the exquisite Celtic snake I have tattooed on my arm, poking out from the edge of my sleeve. I'm tempted to say, "Oh, you have a tiny earthworm cowering in your pants." My tattoo is a personal thing, not something to use for a pickup line. Well, one time I asked Michael if he'd like to see my tattoo in much the cliched way of saying, "Do you want to come up and see my etchings?" Even now, if I close my eyes, I can feel his tongue tracing the path of the apple blossoms drifting over my breast and belly. But it was my come-on line, not some slob's buying sour cream. Yep, he had potato chips and beer too. Figures. He winks at me and says, "I have a snake. I'll show you mine if you show me yours." I consider lobbing both the boysenberry yogurt in my right hand and the raspberry in my left at him. But I'm a nice person, and so I carefully set both yogurts back on their respective piles and turn to slowly walk away when his voice stops me for the third time. I got this tattoo after my father died. It helps, sort of. I turn back and look. He's holding up his shirt for me to see a vivid red and gold snake encircling his navel. My eyes find his. They are so blue. And I'm going to do just one more from this book. This is one that got into the book late. We'd already chosen everything, and then I read this in a magazine and really wanted to include it. This is by a writer named Tony Hoagland, and it's called The News. The big country beat the little country up like a schoolyard bully. So an even bigger country stepped in and knocked it on its ass to make it nice, which reminds me of my Uncle Bob's philosophy of parenting. It's August. I'm sitting on the porch swing, touching the sores inside my mouth with the tip of my tongue, watching the sun go down in the west like a sinking ship from which a flood of sticky orange bleeds out. It's the hour of meatloaf perfume emanating from the houses. It's the season of Little League practice and atonal high school band rehearsals. You can't buy a beach umbrella in the stores till next year. The summer beauty pageants are all over, and no one I know won the swimsuit competition. This year, illness just flirted with me, picking me up and putting me down like a cat with a ball of yarn. So I walked among the living like a tourist, and I wore my health uneasily, like a borrowed shirt, knowing I would probably have to give it back. There are the terrible things that happen to you, and the terrible things that you yourself make happen, like Frank, who gave his favorite niece a little red sports car for her to smash her life to pieces in. And the girl on the radio sings, "You know what I'm talking about, ba-whoop-a-whoop." This year, it seems like everyone is getting tattoos. Great white sharks and Chinese characters, hummingbirds and musical notes. But the only tattoo I would want to get is of a fist and a rose. But I can't tell how they will fit together on my shoulder. If the rose is inside the fist, it will be crushed or hidden. If the fist is closed, as a fist by definition is, it cannot reach out to touch the rose. Yet the only tattoo I want this year is of a fist and rose together. Fist that helps you survive, rose without which you have no reason to live. So that's a little sampling of some of the stuff in this book. And I'm going to sort of turn to the musical portion of the program. And I've been trying to integrate a bit my passion for blues harmonica and for music with my writing and with my passion for poetry. And so I've been experimenting in various ways with what I could do. So I'm going to treat you or subject you, depending on what you think, to a couple of these experiments. And so what I want to do first is read a couple of blues poems. And these are poems that are actually in the form of the blues, which I'm sure you all know. It's basically a line, a repeated line, and then a third line that rhymes. For example, Little Walter sings, "It's a mean old world, try living by yourself. It's a mean old world, try living by yourself. Can't get the one you love, gotta use somebody else." And that's the line, the repetition, and then the third line. And, or let's see, what's another example? "You ain't nothing but a hound dog," right? I'll never be an Elvis impersonator, but that's a blues form. "You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. That's okay, you ain't good looking and you ain't no friend of mine." So again, same thing, that form is a real common form. And so what I did was I took that for writing and kind of loosely used that idea of a line and a repeated line. But I played with it a little more than that, and sometimes I would have a rhymed line instead of a repeated line. But I tried to sort of keep that principle in mind and stay pretty close to that idea. So this first one I'm going to do is called Missing Child Blues. And I wrote it, I started a long time ago actually. I don't know if any of you remember Polly Klaas. It was about 8 years ago now. She was a little girl that was kidnapped in Petaluma, California, which is near where I live. And that's when I started this poem. And my daughter was around her age at that time, and it just, it affected all of us, as all these kinds of things do when you really start to contemplate what's happening, and especially when you, I think when you're a parent. If you're a parent of a child, you really realize how vulnerable they are. So this is Missing Child Blues. Well, I'm lying in a field, hope you find me pretty soon. Lying in a field, hope you find me pretty soon. I'm afraid of being nothing but a few old bones. If I think of my name, then maybe you'll hear it. If I think of my name, then maybe you'll hear. He asked what it was. I smelled grapes in his beard. Been so long now, I'm just a skeleton. So long now, just an ugly skeleton. 10 years of new shoes, then 10 years sinking in. Once I asked my mother if God was all over. I asked if he saw us. I had a high fever. She said she didn't know as she straightened my covers. Then she kissed my face, then she kissed my hair. Then he tore my pajamas and my legs were bare. If you're still looking for me, you won't find me anywhere. The next one I'm going to do is a blues for Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson was an amazing blues musician, guitarist, who really just affected everybody who came after him. Learned so much from Robert Johnson. He's an amazing songwriter and guitar player. And I want to tell you a little bit about him in case you don't know about him. He started out actually as a harmonica player, but he switched pretty quickly to guitar, and he really wanted to learn guitar, but he was so bad, he would go around to the juke joints and try to play with people, and they would go, "Oh, here comes that guy, Robert Johnson. Get out of here, because we don't want to play with you, because you're so bad." And then what happened was that he went away and got very good. And there are a couple explanations for this. One of them being that he went down to Dockery's plantation and met the devil at the crossroads. The devil tuned his guitar and taught him how to play. And he sold his soul to the devil, of course, for this. The less supernatural explanation is that he was married at the time. He had a young wife, and she died in childbirth. And so my explanation is that, driven by that kind of grief and looking for a place to put it, he put it into his art, and he got very, very good at the guitar in a short time. He also he loved the ladies, and he was always getting into trouble in one place or another. And he died at either 24 or 27, I can't remember. Supposedly, perhaps anyway, poisoned by a jealous woman. I just read another story about him because I'm reading this book on the blues, and it says something like some guy who was recording him went to a town with him and kind of said, "All right, Robert, now go to your hotel room for the night and get some sleep, and we're going to go have dinner. Don't get into any trouble." So they get to dinner, and no sooner do they sit down than they get a call from the police, he's in jail and they got to go and get him out of jail. So they take him back to his hotel room again, and they give him 45 cents for breakfast the next morning, and they say, stay put. Don't come out, and just stay put till morning and go get yourself some breakfast. Well, then they're going back to dinner and they get a phone call, and it's Robert Johnson, and he says, I'm lonely. And the guy says, well, so you're lonely? He goes, well, I have a lady with me and I lacks a nickel. So he said, she wants 50 cents and I lacks a nickel. So he had found himself some company and he needed just one more nickel to take care of the lady. But the story that of his death is that he was in a juke joint down in Three Forks, Mississippi with, I love these names, Honey Boy Edwards and Sonny Boy Williamson. And they were served some whiskey, and the seal on the bottle was open. And so they said, don't drink that. And he went ahead and drank it, and he got strychnine poisoning from that and died a few days later. So there's a little bit of that background in the poem. Not very much, but I just thought you might like to know all that stuff anyway. And the other thing is I'm going to start and end this with two Robert Johnson tunes, with my version of them, Love in Vain and Crossroad Blues. Give me a pint of whiskey with a broken seal. Give me one more hour with a broken feel. I can't sleep again and a black dog's on my trail. You're singing Hellhound, Crossroads, Love in Vain. You're singing and the black sky is playing rain. You're stomping your feet, shaking the window pane. Palm to the glass to get the cold. I drink the memories that scald, drink to the loves that failed and failed. Look down into the river, I can see you there, looking down into the blue light of a woman's hair, saying to her baby, dark on Catch Me Here. Buried in Mississippi under a stone. You're buried and still singing under the ground. And the blues fell mama's child. Tore me all upside, tore me all upside, tore me all upside down. So those are a couple of the blues songs, and I'm going to do just a couple more sort of quasi pieces, at least inspired by music. This one's called Fever Blues, but it's not in the form of a blues. Maybe because I feel so dull and sick today, the dozen harmonicas on my dresser, snug in their gray plastic cases, the lids popped open, seem to me like little caskets I must caretake before the arrival of the mourners, a family named Honer, which has suffered a grievous loss. You can picture that, right? How similar death makes them, the libidinous G, the guileless C, even the strange D flat. They are tarnished where my lips touch them. They have sung while handling the snakes of sorrow. Happiness has knocked them down like a fit. Now they are as quiet as unhitched boxcars strewn in a train yard outside Chicago. I've got the blues for everyone who has to lie down like the dead all day, far from the juke joint of health. Blues for the falling night and the sheets wrung out from cancer or fever, the moonlit harps of flotilla waiting to take us down to the mouth of the river. And this is called, this poem wants to be a rock and roll song so bad. I'm gathered with my friends in my parents' garage between the Toro mower and the washer, practicing this poem at a deafening volume while inhaling nonstick Pam from a Ziploc. This poem captures the essence of today's youth, a raunchy perfume named Fuck It, excreted from the balls of a civet. I like how those lines rhyme just like in a song, Tupac Shaheed and Sexton Erica Jong. Let me tell you what this poem really wants. It wants to make you slam dance and fist pump and scream, yeah, 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 until you crawl across a sticky club floor, weeping with profound understanding before you vomit in the women's room sink. It wants you to listen to it over and over and over, so that 30 years from now, whatever wayward idiocy you were up to will come back glazed with nostalgia. Gee, remember wandering around the golf course hallucinating in the middle of the night? Remember the security guard at your dad's work finding us naked? And that guy with the knife convinced we were insects from outer space? Those were the days. That poem was on everybody's car radio in heavy rotation. Let's go find that tattered book again and feel like we used to. Light some incense and a bunch of those little vanilla votives. Come over here and ravish me while I recite this poem word for word, including the awesome guitar solo I can play with this beautiful instrument made out of nothing but air. I think I'm going to do just one or two more and then open it up to questions and comments. Nice comments. I don't want to say anything bad until later when I can't hear you. I'll be in the next town. I'm doing five days, 5 colleges in Georgia. Does that sound like a recipe for, I don't know what, disaster maybe? I've never been to Georgia, and last night was my welcome to Georgia. You know, up until 2 in the morning, crouching in the hallway by the stairs, waiting for the tornado to hit. Thanks for inviting me. It was great. I loved it. You know, the sky was amazing. It was really incredible. I'm just babbling up here while I look for this poem. Because this is stuff from a new book called What Is This Thing Called Love? So I don't know where anything is yet. I'm going to hit it though. Hopefully soon, because I don't have anything else to say. Oh, that's okay. I could read that. Nah, okay. So this is why I usually prepare. What?
It's a good John Cage impersonation.
It is, really? Just the shuffling of pages is what happens? I love it. Where's that title from, The Music of What Happens? Anybody know? I love that title. Okay, I'm going to do this one and then maybe one more. This is called Ex-Boyfriends. Hey, I don't even have to read the poem. That was such a nice reaction. Okay, next I'm going to read. I'm going to flip some more pages. Okay. This is, yeah, I said that already. Ex-boyfriends. They hang around hitting on your friends, or else you never hear from them again. They think of you with the next woman, but never the one after that. They call when they're drunk, or finally get sober. They're passing through town and want dinner. They take your hand across the table, kiss you when you come back from the bathroom. They were your loves, your victims, your good dogs or bad boys, and they're over you now. They write books in which a woman who sounds suspiciously like you is the first to be sadistically dismembered by a serial killer. It's a true story. I was so thrilled too. I was like, cool, I'm in a book. They're getting married and want you to be the first to know. Or they've been fired and need a loan. Their new girlfriend hates you. They say they don't miss you, but show up in your dreams, calling to you from the shoeboxes where they're buried in rows in your basement. Some nights you find one floating into bed with you, propped on an elbow, giving you a look of fascination, a look that says, I can't believe I've found you. It's the same way your current boyfriend gazed at you last night, before he pulled the plug on the tiny white lights above the bed and moved against you in the dark, broken occasionally by the faint, restless arcs of headlights from the freeway's passing trucks, the big rigs that travel and travel, hauling their loads between cities, warehouses, following the familiar routes of their loneliness. And I'm going to close with this poem, which is the last one in Tell Me. I used to think that to be a writer I had to take notes all the time. So I was always trying to write things down so I wouldn't forget them because I have a really terrible memory. But what I realized that was, at least for my process, that those things, that the body was sort of taking notes when I wasn't really paying attention, but something was paying attention because these little details would float back up when I was writing, and they turned out to be the details I needed. So then I'd stop taking any notes at all. And this is a little bit about that. And of course it's about death. It's all good poems are. Yeats said that sex and death are the only subjects for a serious poet, so I feel like I'm a very serious poet. Flood. How images enter you, the shudder of the body clicking when you're not even looking. Smooth chill of satin sheets, piano keys, a pastry's glazy crust floating up suddenly, so the hairs along your arm lift in that current of memory, and your tongue tastes the sweet salt of a lover as he surges against you, plunges towards the place you can't dive into, but which is deepening each moment you are alive, the black pupil widening, the man going down and in, the food and champagne and music and light. There is no bottom to this, silt and murk of losses that won't ever settle, and the huge unsleeping fish, voracious for pleasure, and the soundless fathoms where nothing yet exists, this minute, the next, the last breath let out and not returning. Oh, hold on to me as the waters rise. Don't be afraid. We are going to join the others. We are going to remember and tell them everything. Okay, please clap now. Questions that you would like to ask, please feel free. I'm pretty much open for business here. I lacks a nickel. I love that line. I lacks a nickel. Yeah. About 3 years. Well, somewhat self-taught, and then I had a teacher for a while, but I stopped taking lessons because he was always so stoned that he forgot the lessons. So I would drive from San Francisco to Berkeley, which is, across a bridge, and it's like 45 minutes, and I'd get there, and, oh, what? We have a lesson? Oh, I'm sorry, man. Or he wouldn't be there at all. But he actually, he taught me a lot, as it turned out. I didn't think so at the time. But later, I sort of did stuff on my own, and then I went and worked with another teacher a little bit who was not a very good harmonica player, nor was she a blues player, but she taught me about music in terms of really listening to the singer and where to do the fills and how to do a solo and how to construct a solo. She taught me a bit about that. And then I realized how much my first teacher had actually taught me, in spite of, or maybe because of, I don't know. But so it's been kind of a mix. I had a couple teachers, and mostly I listened to CDs and learn off of records and CDs. Yeah.
As a poet and a performer, what's harder for you? Being honest when you're first writing, because it seems really fair to be able to write as honestly about your own experiences. Is that the scary part, or is it when you actually get up there and tell people what you experienced? Or is any of it scary?
Well, yeah, it's like the thing about writing it, you kind of get over that. I got over that really fast and just wrote whatever I wanted. It's a lot more nervous making for me to get up in front of people, and sometimes I really enjoy it, and sometimes I'm just really terrified, and it's just a whole different thing, really. And it's not so much that I'm so involved with the words as much as it is, or the experience of that. I think it's just I'm a shy person, and it's hard for me to be up in front of people and put myself out. I was really comfortable reading from this because it's other people's work, and I'm really comfortable promoting this book because it's other people's work, even though I work to put it together. I'm much more likely to say to somebody, hey, I just edited this book, you should really check it out. Dorothy Parker's Elbow. I'll do a commercial, I'm shameless, but it's other writers, so I feel like I'm putting their work out there and letting people know about them, and with myself, I just don't feel that comfortable sometimes, so it's different, yeah. But you have to get over it if you're going to be a writer. You have to, that's the idea, is you put your work out. And with any art, you put it out, because otherwise it's not just for you, You work to make it good, like a gift, you want to make a good gift to give to somebody. So you try to do it as well as you can, and then you try to pass it on to somebody else. Somebody else? Well, I could ask you guys questions. Let's see. Yeah.
Before you go, any chance you'll do a harmonica encore for us?
Oh, that was a lot of what I know right there. Really challenging me now. Yeah, well, I've worked on those tunes quite a bit, and I've only been playing for 3 years, which is not a very long time. I guess I could play a little bit of Chicka Chicka just to sort of show you that little sort of train thing. But I'll just end with that, and maybe unless if somebody has a question, let's have more questions first, and I'll be happy to play a little. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite poem that you've written?
Yeah. This is a really common answer, but the last one I've written is always my favorite, just because it's the one I'm most involved in and interested in. And so there may be poems of mine that I like, but I get tired of them, because I know them too well. And I don't want to know them that well, really, or spend that much time with it. Somebody said it's really bad to be a connoisseur of your own work. And I really agree with that. It's somebody else wrote, though, that I like my own poems best. And I can sort of see that too sometimes. But yeah, usually what I've just written, I'm really interested in, because it's still kind of engaging my imagination. I'm still thinking about the problems it presents, or thinking about the language or the subject matter or whatever it is, and so I'm real involved with that. Whereas I'm not so involved with work from my first book. I read it sometimes, and I don't feel a great connection with it because it was written by somebody else. Literally, I was somebody else years ago. We become other people. So. Yeah.
You feel as though you are more involved with commentary, or that you're more involved with
I don't know. I think I'm just involved with trying to write, honestly. But I know you're asking about sort of what happens after that, and I don't think poetry really changes many people's minds about things. But I think that on some level, it adds to the sum of light and to the sum of awareness rather than adding to other stuff. And so I think in that way it's kind of this positive force in the world. And maybe on some level it can help change consciousness. I don't know. I like to think that it can, but I don't have any real illusions or delusions about poetry being effective in some way, politically, or that my opinion matters at all to anybody who's making any kind of policy. It doesn't. But still, we need poems and we need art of some kind in our lives. So I just think the more of that that comes out of us, that's all to the good, because the other side of that is just basically, grubbing for money and power. And that's what's led to, the beautiful world we find ourselves in today. In the world we've always found ourselves in, money and power. So anything that adds to the equation on the other side, maybe one day there'll be enough over here that it'll kind of tip the scales a little. Yeah.
When did the idea of becoming a writer really take hold of you, as sort of always written and not when you decided that's something?
Not until my late 20s, actually. I was involved with music earlier as a singer and then as a flute player, and I really wanted to be a musician and just sort of discovered poetry, really. Just read some poetry that blew me away. And although I can't remember what it was, but I know it was by Sylvia Plath, but it just blew me away, and I thought, what is this stuff? And I hadn't had any exposure to it really, and then I started reading it and writing it, and just decided it was really what I needed to do more than anything else, and just decided to write my way towards and read my way towards where I thought I wanted to go, which was to become a poet. And I was, fortunate to do that thing. So, yeah.
I've just been looking at some of the poems here, and Tell Me is the only book here I've read, but you have a few prose poems in here, and you deal a lot with really long lines. And I just thought maybe try to ask you a question about do you feel like it's more difficult writing poems with longer lines or shorter lines, like actually getting the lines to make sense the way they are with such length and kind of hold together like sonically? I mean, do you feel more comfortable with that, or how do you approach it? Just because.
Yeah, well, I was really influenced by a contemporary writer named C.K. Williams, who writes a lot of long line poems, and I mean, he's not, Ginsberg did too, and of course Walt Whitman, and there have been other people, but so I got really interested in what the long line could contain. It seemed to me you could get a lot of stuff in, you could pack the line with all of this stuff. And what I liked about C.K. Williams's work was how he really seemed to be this poet of just consciousness. He could be, he has this poem about, he's sitting down at dinner with a very good friend of his, and the wife does something like, his friend's wife does something like passes him the bread across the table. And in that instant she passes him the bread, he realizes two things. One, she's having an affair. And two, she has just, acknowledged it to him by a look. And the poem is like about this long, with these long lines. And it's all about like unpacking one little moment of consciousness where there's this shift, and all of a sudden he gets it, and he sees that his friend doesn't know. His friend's happily eating dinner, and he sees that the wife knows he knows. And it's just this fascinating moment. And he has those kind of poems, and he has like other like narrative poems that tell these stories. And so I just got really interested in trying to see what that long line could do, and how you could pack a lot of stuff in that might be a little more prosy sometimes, and a little less, when you have a short line, you can really look at the rhythm of it, and you can be real aware of it. It's so sharp, and it has a kind of edge to it. And I'm not saying you can write more loosely, but maybe I am saying that. Well, somehow I feel you can get a little more in, or let a little more into the long line that maybe some people would think of as more the province of prose. It's a really slippery slope anyway. What is it? There's this creature called the prose poem, and then there's the short story, and the boundaries are really slippery, I think. But yeah, so I just got interested in exploring that. Somebody else, yeah.
Does it take you a long time to write your poetry? or does it just vary per poem?
It does vary some. It's faster now than it used to be. I definitely go through less drafts than I used to because I have a little more sense of how to make a poem. And if it's not working, I just get rid of it. I throw a lot of stuff away that probably I should work on harder. But I sort of get to this critical point where I think, okay, this can become something, and so I'll work on this. And it really varies. Nothing comes really quickly, but I seem to have put out a book about every 3 years, and so far. So it seems like it takes me about 3 years to accumulate what is that, 55, 60 pages of poetry in 3 years. So I don't know, somebody else can do the math, what that works out to. But, and I think that's actually pretty fast. I have friends who, take much longer than that. And Elizabeth Bishop, for example, who is an incredible writer, spent just years working on her poems and has a relatively small body of work for a poet. So it's really different. I mean, everybody's process is different, I think. But I think the main thing is work on them till you get them right, however long that takes. And sometimes it can take a very long time. So, but it's fun. You don't do it unless you really enjoy that process, and you really are interested in language and in where that takes you, and that's the fun of it. So, and the more you work, the better you get, I think. Hope. Anybody else? Yeah.
Do you feel like when you're inspired by something, or do you try to write every day, or any certain?
No, we were talking about this earlier in Sandy Meek's class, and no, what I said there, I'll say again, which is that if you just sit around and wait for inspiration, you're going to spend your whole life and you're going to be like 95 and you're going to be working on your little chapbook that's like, this big, because inspiration just doesn't come that often. So no, it's really important to have discipline in any kind of art or any kind of endeavor in life, I think. You want to be good at a sport, you got to work at it. You want to be a good musician, you got to work at it. You want to be a good writer, you got to work at it. There's just no way around it. It's all time. It's all time and commitment and taking it seriously. And if you do that, I think you can go a long way. I'm starting to sermonize here. So. Anything else? Anybody else have a question or comment?
You were going to play that song.
Sorry?
We're going to play that last riff.
I was going to play. Well, see, I'm
Chicka.
stalling now because I'm. Well, okay, I don't know where this is going to go. I really don't. All right.
Memories.